Hello everyone, Mrs. Burton here with Slacker. We are going to read chapter 3 titled Daphne Leibowitz. I can't stop worrying about Elvis. What was going to happen to him? Rejected by his whole family? Kicked out of his home? Wandering around town with no place to call his own? It was so tragic. I got choked up just thinking about it. He was so adorable, too. Buck teeth, fat cheeks, flat tail. When he slapped the water, you could hear it half a mile away. But not anymore. There was no water left to slap. Not since they drained the creek when they built the new mall. I bet it hurt to beat your tail against the tarmac of the parking lot. He was too old to keep up, I guess. The rest of the beaver colony moved on whenever their lodge was destroyed by the construction company, but Elvis couldn't hack it. The poor little guy. He stayed behind in Sycamore and made the best of it. But he had nothing. No lodge, no other beavers to hang out with, no purpose in life besides chewing on things. He still did that. And when he chewed on people's fence posts and swing sets and deck chairs and cable wires, they got angry just because the TV went out during Saturday Night Football. Those were the kinds of people who lived in this town. People who valued football over a human life. Well, beaver life anyway. That was the whole problem with Sycamore. Nobody cared. Not about a poor homeless beaver. Not about anything. We all stood around pretending everything was fine while the mall sucked all the business away from Main Street. No, it was worse than that. We were all the customers abandoning our own town and driving to the mall to do our shopping. No wonder the transportation department was planning to demolish Sycamore's crumbling interstate exit. Now that there was another ramp a mile and a half down the road to the service mall. Think about that. Our whole community wasn't worth the cost of a little shoring up and road work. What would happen to our stores then? For all anybody gave a hoot, they'd close one by one, leaving downtown an empty shell. And then poor Elvis wouldn't even have the garbage dumpsters to eat out of. Our school was a perfect example of Sycamore's bad attitude. I sat with my iPad browsing through the Sycamore Middle School website. There were pictures of parties, dances, pep rallies. Even the listings of school clubs only emphasized how self-centered we were. The track team, oh, you can't run? Too bad. The art club, you're all thumbs? Take a hike. The drama society, you've got stage fright? Tough buns. The chess club, no brains, no dice. And what was this? The Positive Action Group? I'd never heard of that one before. It must have been something new. It was probably cheesy, but the name sounded so positive. I read the whole thing, and I'll bet my jaw was hanging down to my knees. Confession. I could be kind of a complainer. But the Positive Action Group wasn't just positive, it was exactly what Sycamore Middle School needed most, and exactly at the right time. In the middle of all these selfish teams and clubs designed to cry out, "Look at how great I am!" Here was a school organization completely devoted to helping other people. I pictured the crowded halls between periods. 800 kids grunting, shoving, and slouching their way to the next class. Who in that group could possibly be awesome enough to have come up with the Positive Action Group? I squinted at the screen. Meet Cameron Boxer, PAG president. Cameron Boxer? I know Cam Boxer. He's the laziest kid in the whole school. There was no way he could be head of anything like the PAG. A stood for action. And he was the total opposite of that. The only helping he ever did was helping himself to cookies on Parents' Night. But maybe maybe I was wrong. People changed, after all. Like I used to eat tuna that wasn't caught in dolphin-safe nets, and now I'd rather starve. Cam didn't seem like that kind of guy who'd get into helping people, but who was I to judge? After all, it was right here in black and white on the school's website. He deserved my support, not my suspicion. The PAG would never have a more enthusiastic member than me. I wasn't even going to wait till Monday to join. Since the contact link on the site wasn't working, I would go over to Cam's house this minute and sign on the dotted line. And it would be my chance to tell Cam face to face how great I thought it was doing this. I looked up his address. He lived on Ontario Street, only a few blocks over from me. When I got there, it was kind of weird. The house was nice enough, 2 stories with red brick and white painted shutters, but there was no door. It wasn't open or anything like that. Where the door should have been, someone had nailed up a big sheet of plywood. I knocked on it and called out, "Cam!" There was no answer, although I could hear sounds coming from inside, kind of like a distant explosion. I banged harder. I couldn't find a doorbell. It might have been covered by the plywood. Quite a few people had scribbled their names on the surfaces. I knew some of them from school. Was this kind of like leaving a message, the plywood equivalent of a voicemail? Was I supposed to do that too? I didn't. Writing on walls was almost like vandalism. For sure the Positive Action Group would be against that. It was then that I noticed a light glimmering in the corner of a basement window. I crouched and peered inside. I couldn't see much because there was some kind of pillow jammed in the inside clove. But through the tiny corner, I could squint into the rec room in the basement. This was definitely where the explosions were coming from. I could hear them much more clearly as I hunkered down in the flower bed. And there was Cam. Or at least I thought it was him. I could only make out the top of his head. But it was his light brown hair and slightly hunched shoulders. What was he doing down there? Why didn't he answer the door? I mean, there was no door, but why didn't he answer the plywood? I'd banged pretty hard. This time, I got down on my knees and knocked on the glass. The kid didn't even look up. I was starting to get a little worried. What chance did the Positive Action Group have if its president didn't know enough to answer his own door, or whatever was supposed to be nailed across the front entrance of his house? "Cam Boxer!" I bellowed. End of chapter 3. That was a pretty short chapter, but we know that Cam Boxer didn't create the PAG to do good. He created the PAG so his parents would give him video games back and he wouldn't have to do anything. But now we have this problem because we have Daphne, a middle school do-gooder who really wants to do well. She worries about beavers, she worries about dolphins, and she thinks that the PAG is the perfect way to get involved in positive action in the community. Little does she know, Cam has a far different plan than she ever could imagine. I will see you next time for chapter 4.